Hi, I'm Claire Tulas.
And I'm Jason Thomas.
Welcome to our second episode of Hot Topics.
Today's episode deals with the issue of lunch at GL. You can ask any student and get many different opinions about the length, quality, and price of lunch.
Carlos Alvarez and Nick Sangiovanni were present during lunch and got some information from students. Here is their report.
Hi, I'm Carlos Alvarez.
And I'm Nick Sangiovanni. And recently, we visited the cafeteria here at GL to see what the students had to say about lunch.
We received many responses to questions we asked about length, cost, and choices of lunch.
Most students said they wanted a longer lunch, but were unwilling to lengthen the day in order to get one.
Prices of lunch have gone up, but most students agree the meal has improved.
Let's go to the videotape.
So, do you think Governor Livingston lunch is long enough? Why or why not?
No, because everyone's always rushed to eat and no one ever actually gets here on time. So we're always pressed for time.
So, Dave, what would you do to get a longer lunch, and would you be willing to have a longer lunch to have, the day would be longer to get a longer lunch?
Well, in order to get a longer lunch, I think that we would have to, the schedule would have to be rearranged, and classes would have to be shortened in order to keep a longer school day. However, I feel there's a lot of objections to that. Although we do need a longer lunch, it is necessary to maintain the same class time between classes. But maybe if we extended the school day by another 5 minutes and make lunch a little longer and was able to rearrange the classes, I would be in favor of it because lunches are really too short and it is a problem. It's very hard to eat quickly and socialize with your friends at the same time.
Yeah. And lunch is getting more crowded. If we added a fourth lunch, how would you feel about eating earlier or later than you do now?
Well, I have a thing about eating right now, even at 11:30. It's kind of early for me. If we have to eat at 11, that's just way too early. That's maybe 3.5 hours after you eat breakfast, which is kind of early if you eat breakfast. And a late lunch, I think some people might object to that because they'll get very hungry. So it's a very sticky situation that really does need to be addressed. Maybe if they made more classes that could go into second lunch, that would make a difference, or something like that.
Yeah. And lunch is getting more crowded. If we added a fourth lunch, how would you feel about eating earlier or later than you do now?
I wouldn't care if I ate earlier or later because I hate how crowded lunch is, and I understand that's hard.
Price. Price is always a hot topic among students. I found some interesting information on this issue, on the increase of price of food at GL. Following our interview, my opinion changed completely on the price of lunch when I discovered the reasons for the increase. I recently interviewed Mrs. Planko, the cafeteria supervisor at Governor Livingston. Hi, I'm Jason Thomas. I'm here with Mrs. Planko. How you doing?
How are you?
Good. I'm here to ask you about lunch at GL. What determines the price of a lunch here?
The price of lunch is determined basically by two different things: the market price of food, and also by the by the state. We're participating in the school lunch program, and as of this year, the state has increased their maximum that we can charge for lunches. Last year it was $2.25. This year it's $2.40. That would be for a full lunch.
And what could be expected with a full lunch? What kind of food could you get?
Well, that would be your main entree, whatever we're making that day. Today we're having Italian hot dogs. For instance, the other day it was cheeseburgers. The other day it was ravioli. What you would need to have is at least 3 items out of 5. You could have, say, for instance, if hamburgers on the menu, hamburger, the salad bar, milk or juice, and a piece of fruit, and that will include the entire lunch.
If, per se, you wanted to get something else with your lunch, like a Snapple or fries, how much would that cost extra?
Well, a Snapple is an a la carte item, so you'd be charged $1 for a Snapple. If you're taking a full lunch, French fries would only be 75 cents. If you're buying French fries a la carte, it's $1.50. My boss and I decided, for a nutritional standpoint, that French fries would not be included on the menu as part of the food.
Would you say a lot of kids include French fries with their lunch every day, or not?
A considerable amount do, and a considerable amount buy it a la carte.
So wouldn't that kind of defeat the purpose of leaving it off the menu if everyone's going to get it anyway?
No, not really, because a lot of kids just eat fries for lunch.
Okay. Is there any truth in the rumor that since the cafeteria is only open now before school and at lunch, as opposed to last year or the year before that when it was open all day to students and study and they could, buy items then? Is that a reason why the prices would have gone up because the school would be making less of a profit on it? Or?
No, that didn't make a determination on the prices. The price, again, is market value, and the fact that inflation, gasoline prices, everything affects prices of food, and every item that even if you buy it in the store or go into the restaurant, you'll see that inflation just has an effect on everything. Some of our items haven't gone up in price. Some of them have gone up 25 cents. Some items, some snack items are the same price as last year.
Okay. With an increase in the price of lunch, one would expect an increase in the quality or the quantity of the food. How much of this applies to the GL lunch?
That is actually one of the reasons why the price has gone up. We have decided to offer some better quality items on the menu, and so with better quality comes a higher price. We tried to do the best we can in getting a variety of items. We do with many companies so that we can get the best price in. And actually recently I just went to a food show, and hopefully we'll be getting some new and different items in for sale.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Although many students would like an open lunch, this option is totally out of consideration due to safety reasons and the fact that GL is located out of a commercial area.
Mr. Jones and Ms. McAdam answered Jason Thomas' questions about that, and also the length and schedule of lunch here at GL now and in the future.
Mr. Jones and Ms. McAdam are here to answer some of the burning questions about lunch at GL. Mr. Jones, how are the lengths of the lunch periods determined?
The length of the lunches has been in place for many, many years. It was actually determined back when we had 1,700 students here. At that time we had 4 lunches. Now we have 3 because our enrollment obviously is a lot less. Basically what it is, it's the amount of time set aside that reasonably that the students can eat their lunch, and also it has to fit within the confines of the school day and the school period. Fifth period is a little bit longer because of the fact that there are 3 lunches, but the lunches are 28 minutes long, and based on the number of students in the cafeteria and the way the cafeteria serving lines can feed, that's generally what we use to determine the length of the lunches.
Okay. Were the lunch periods the same when more students went to GL? Were they the same amount of time?
Yes, the length of the lunches was pretty much the same. However, the length of the day was longer, and when I first started here, we had 4 lunches. And basically what that meant was that the 5th period was divided into 4 segments. If you ate first lunch, you would then go to your, after lunch, you'd go to your 5th period class. You'd have 2 lunches for instruction, and you'd have the 3rd lunch, which was actually the 4th lunch at that time, would be like a study hall. If you ate second lunch, you went to your 5th period class, had a 28-minute study, went to lunch, then came back and had the class. And then likewise, if you had 3rd lunch, you went to class, had your lunch after the first 2 lunches, and then came back for a 20-minute study hall. And then if you had 4th lunch, the teacher would determine whether you started with a study and then had the 2 periods for instruction, 2 lunch periods, and then lunch, or whether you had the lesson, then the study to start your homework, and then ate lunch.
All right. Lunches are getting pretty crowded now with 3 lunches, especially the first lunch. Would it be possible to get another lunch? Why or why not?
Okay, the first lunch is probably our heaviest lunch simply because that's when the cafeteria workers are set up to handle the most students, because they have all the prep time before the students arrive. What happens also is that when labs are tied into the 5th period gym class, that may change when a student takes lunch. For example, if a student has 5th period gym and a 6th period biology or chemistry or physics course that would have a lab science, what would happen is that they would then go to first lunch, have their double period lab after they had their first lunch, and not go to phys ed that day. So that would give you a shift of students from third lunch to first lunch. We try to balance the lunches as much as possible. Ms. McAdam is very good at doing that. Occasionally, if a class has a split lunch, in other words, they go to class, go to lunch, and then go back to class, and if they're going to give a test, they may take either first or third lunch. But to answer your question, first lunch is usually a little bit heavier simply because that's when everyone is set up for it.
Okay. More students are coming to Governor Livingston. What will you be doing to accommodate more students into the lunch periods?
Well, we have a few options, and this is something that Dr. Baza is aware of. One of the things that I've done is, and Ms. McAdam has also at different school systems, is that we went out to look at other school configurations as far as what they're doing with the lunch. In Montville, where both Mrs. Ratner and Dr. Baza come from, they actually have one lunch period for everyone. It's a longer lunch, and what they do is, though, the building is set up quite differently than ours in that the cafeteria is on the same level as the gym, and that they have these nice open foyers where they can have a food court, and they actually are serving food from carts. So the students can eat throughout the building, and everybody has lunch at the same time. I'm not so sure that would work here because it's also based on their 8-period day, which they have 6 periods a day, and they drop 2 periods each day, and it rotates. So we haven't, our schedule isn't set up like that. Any change like that would require board approval. And the other thing that we're looking at is that with the new Chancery software computer system that we're getting for student scheduling, is that students will be assigned a lunch, and the lunches will be attached to a period, like a 4th period, a 5th period, or possibly a 6th period. If necessary, if we have to add a 4th lunch, we may do that. But our goal is to balance the lunches and not interfere with the instructional day.
Mr. McAdam, would it be possible to have an open lunch? Why or why not?
That question's come up many times. The biggest problem with open lunch is that in 28 minutes it would be very difficult for a student to leave school, go purchase lunch somewhere, eat it, and get back to school. There are no businesses in the immediate area that students could walk to. It becomes a safety issue for students because we're concerned that they'll be speeding in cars to get to places where they can eat lunch and to get back in time. So our biggest problem with open lunches are the logistics of it, getting out and getting back in time.
So what would the students at GL have to do to have an open lunch?
The decision to go with an open lunch is not something that Mr. Jones and myself could do ourselves. That would require a presentation to the Board of Education, and they would need to approve it. It's not a school rule, it's a district policy. So they would need to take that to the Board of Education.
Okay. So the board would be making the decision?
They make the decision,
okay.
Right.
And if there ever was an open lunch, why was it taken away, like in the past?
I'm not aware that there ever was an open lunch.
I don't think there ever was an open lunch.
There wasn't? Okay.
No, we're too remote, and and especially in this day and age, it's also a security issue simply because the doors were all locked after 8:30. So how would the students get back in?
Right. Could this become a health issue for teenagers?
I see it more as a safety issue than a health issue. The idea of them trying to get to a place and get back in 28 minutes, we are concerned about their safety.
Because the students might have a tendency to drive too fast.
Right.
If there's no place you could walk to, so they would have to go in a car. And that could be a safety issue from that sense.
Does the students leaving school and returning become a security issue as well as a safety issue in terms of?
It's possible because you'd have to have monitors to make sure that the people entering the building were our own students. And we just don't have the people to support that right now.
Thank you for watching.
Be sure to tune in again for a 3rd episode of Hot Topics.